Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today was born in Massachusetts. His father was a 1976 Olympic alternate. He wrestled and graduated from Brown University with a degree in business, economics, and organizational behavior and management. He was a world champion and competed for the U.S. 4 times as an Olympian and won bronze twice. After retiring from competition after the 2004 Olympics, he returned in 2012 to coach the U.S. Olympic team in London. He has coached many notable students, including the first person ever to win Judo Gold for the U.S., Kayla Harrison. He owns and operates Fujimats.com and Fujisports.com, is also the founder of Pedro's Judo Center in Wakefield, Massachusetts. The movie about his life, Fury on the Mat, is very well known. He's married, has 4 children. Please welcome my guest today, Jimmy Pedro. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing terrific, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And kind of what we like to do with all my guests, I want to jump back in and go back to the very beginning. I want to know what led to that first interest, that first spark that started your martial arts journey.
Well, that's quite comical because there was no spark. It was literally thrown into the fire. You know, my dad was a judo instructor, ran a dojo. So ever since the age of 2, I was running around a mat. And at the age of 5, I didn't really have a choice. He said, "Hey, you're doing judo, whether you like it or not, get on the mat, go." So
nice.
And I had no choice, and I didn't look back ever since.
Well, now I've had a few with kind of a similar beginning. So then I asked them, once you got to that age where you could have made that decision and said, "I don't want to do this anymore," what was it about it? What made you want to stick with it at that point?
I don't know if I had ever got to that age.
Your dad still says you can't quit, huh?
Yeah, literally. My dad was like, "No, I don't care. You're doing judo. It's good for you. It's good for your health. If you're not going to play other sports, you're going to do judo." Of course, I went and I tried playing, baseball and football and all kinds of other sports, and I loved them, had fun doing it. And then, of course, one year when I think I was 14 years of age, I lost the national championships that year, and my dad said, "See, that's because you're playing all those other stupid sports. You're going to do judo now and dedicate yourself to judo so that doesn't happen again." And so there went the other sports that I love to play, and lo and behold, I became a full-time judoka.
Nice. Oh, you did do wrestling, though.
I did, yeah.
So what age did that start?
In high school. I
Okay.
started my sophomore year in high school. I started with wrestling just because it was a school sport.
Mm-hmm.
Judo obviously was not a school sport. And I knew that wrestling would be good for my judo career. It would help me, with my mat work and help me with takedowns and things like that, make you tougher wrestling. So I did wrestle for 3 years in high school, and I had a really good, successful high school career. I won the state championships 2 times in Massachusetts.
Nice.
I won the New England championships, and I ended up getting recruited to either go to Brown University or Harvard University, and I ended up choosing Brown and was a 4-year starter for them.
Wow.
Became captain of the team. I won the EIWAs my junior year, qualified for NCAAs in wrestling, all while, still competing on the world circuit for judo, kind of trying to do both sports, and, had a really good college career as well.
That's impressive for not starting until your 10th grade year of high school. I mean, wow. Yeah. So I got to ask then, I'm curious, when you were competing in wrestling or when you were doing judo, how hard was it, like, in your mind to not throw a judo move in there or a wrestling move when you're doing judo? Was that something hard to get over, or was it pretty easy to separate the two while you were doing them?
I mean, since I had done judo my entire life, I knew that sport inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, obviously I incorporated a lot of my judo into my wrestling. And back then, the rules of judo and wrestling were more similar than they are today.
Okay.
Today you can't grab the legs in the sport of judo or do anything below the belt. And back when I was competing, you could do fireman's carries, leg picks, and you could use your hands to grab legs. So, it was a lot easier to do both sports back then. And I think both sports helped me. succeed in the other.
Nice. You said of course you trained with your dad. He ran his own school. What was he like as an instructor? What are some things that stood out for some of those classes? And do you think he was harder on you because you were his son when you were in class?
So the second question, 100%. The road for me was significantly harder than anybody else.
Nice.
My dad was somebody he's very black and white. There's no gray. There's no favoritism. In fact, if there's anything, he'll go the other degree to prove that there is no favoritism. It's always going to be harder, more difficult for his family to do anything in the school or to achieve, the next rank was significantly more difficult for me than other students.
Okay.
But my dad was a disciplinarian. He was, think of, a military general or, drill sergeant. That pretty much epitomizes my dad. Break people down, train them like dogs, make them warriors, keep beating them down until they're tough enough where they either quit or they survive and they become champions. And the ones that stayed in our program, and you spoke about Anne Maria DeMars and her daughter Rhonda, you think of Kayla, Travis, the ones that survived our program ended up going on and becoming champions because that's the way my dad trained everybody.
Nice. So do you remember your first ever judo competition?
I do, yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
It was at my dad's academy, Massasoit Judo School in Peabody, Mass. I was 6 years old, and I was scared to death. I remember sitting on my mother's lap and holding my mom and saying I didn't want to compete, and I was scared and crying and didn't want to do it, and told my dad, no, I'm not competing. My very first match was against this little yellow belt. I was a white belt. He was a yellow belt. African-American kid, 7 years old, and I'm 6, and I'm thinking he's so much older, so much bigger, and telling my dad, I don't want to compete. And he just said, get out there. When we get home, you'll deal with me. And I said, with the 7-year-old yellow belt, I want to get home. My dad's going to kick the crap on me. I'm going to go with the 7-year-old yellow belt, So
Nice.
I ended up winning my first 2 contests in that tournament. And then my dad said, okay, that's good enough, pulled me out and said, you're good. So I ended up taking third place because there were some kids in the division that were 9 years old and, just way too mature for me at that age to compete against at the age of 6. So I ended up finishing third and only having 2 matches, but he was satisfied that I got out there and I fought,
Okay.
So
then what made you want to, did you enjoy competition right away, or was it the next few times, was it the same type thing you didn't want to do it, or was after that first one, were you over that hump and it was pretty easy?
So probably from the age of 6 till about the age of I'd say 10 or 11, every single judo contest I ever went to, I was nervous as heck, butterflies in my stomach, followed my dad around. I wouldn't let him out of my sight. I would walk behind him 2-3 steps everywhere in the venue. Wherever he went, I went. Until I competed and my competition was over, I was nervous and I was I don't say afraid to compete, but I was scared of the outcome,
Okay.
and I was a nervous wreck as a little kid competing. Now, mind you, I didn't lose a contest in judo, I think, until I was 11 years old.
Wow.
So I just had I felt a lot of pressure to perform because my dad was such a hard coach. He was, such a demanding father and coach that I felt like if I had lost a judo contest, I would let him down and he was going to yell at me. And I didn't want my dad yelling at me. So I fought like hell not to lose. So,
Hey.
So it didn't happen. And then we went to every single local tournament, every regional tournament, every nationals every year. And from the age of 6 when I started till I was 11, I didn't lose a match.
Wow. That's really cool. So one thing I've never asked any of my guests that I always, I got to quit assuming that all my listeners understand every martial art and know everything about that. So what does it take to win a judo match? Is it, just explain a little bit. Is it a point thing? How does it work exactly to win a judo match?
As a young judoka under the age of 13, that's when chokes are allowed at the age of 13 and older.
Okay.
To win a judo contest requires you to take your opponent from a standing position and throw them onto their back. If you throw them directly from the feet to their back with good force, it's called an ippon, and the match is over when you score ippon. So you can throw your opponent as a kid onto their back, a combination of 2 throws that aren't directly to the back, but that are onto the side or, back exposure, but not directly onto the back or not with enough force, you'll get a half a point. And 2 half a points will end the match with a full point. So throws is one way to win. And the other way to win as a kid is by pinning your opponent onto their back. Similar to wrestling, outside the guard of jiu-jitsu. So you have to pass the legs to secure a pin in judo. Even if they have one of your ankles, it's not considered a pin. You have to have both of your legs past the guard position, largely onto their back, holding them down with control for a period of 20 seconds. And that also wins the contest.
Cool. Yeah. I don't know why I've never asked that question. I need to remember that when I have guests on from different styles to explain some of that stuff for my listeners. So that's very
sense.
Yeah, very good explanation. So at what age did you start teaching? What age, what belt?
So, I mean, as a young kid, at a professional school, and my dad ran a pretty professional school when I was a kid, I was always asked to help other kids, go show them how to do this move, or go show them how to fall, or go show them how to do these basic moves. So I was brought up at a school where I was helping others all the time, but I didn't open my own academy and start teaching my own school until after the 1996 Olympics. So at the age of 26 is when I opened my academy and started teaching. Prior to that, I'd done seminars and clinics and gone places and to make money to support my career, from the age of like 18 till 26. But I really didn't become a full-time school owner until that time.
Okay. So think back to then to now. What do you think has changed the most about your teaching style over the years?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, as a competitor, when you first opened your academy, your goal is to produce athletes, produce champions. You want to train people really, really hard. You want to make your students the best they can be, and you want to go to competitions, right? And win at events. It's kind of why everybody gets into coaching. But as I've matured and as what I see as when you focus only on competition, you're alienating about 90% of the population that wants to do judo that can benefit from doing judo.
Yep.
So now my academy is made up of kids that are 2-3 years old, all the way up to guys that are in their 70s, right? And my school went from always having about 50 or 60 people in it who are all competitors. And I could never figure out why I can't get past 50 or 60 people at my school, because we have a really good judo school. We train really, really hard, and we teach the best of technique. Why do we only have 50 or 60 people? It's because people can't handle that training. It's too intense. It's too hard. So when I started having recreational programs and I started exposing the community to the benefits of judo outside of competition, right? Gaining confidence, learning how to fall safely, learning how to protect yourself, learning how to stand up to bullies, setting goals, being disciplined, not necessarily training hard, but having fun, learning the skills of judo and staying in the sport to better yourself as a person, to be more fit, to be, more confident. I then shortened my training schedule, divided everything by rank. We have a basic kids class, we have an intermediate kids class, we have an advanced kids class, and then I have a competition class. So I have, 4 or 5 different levels for kids and the same for adults. And when I did that and I professionalized my school and I made it less about competition and more about changing people's lives and making it more of a community, we now have over 300 people at my academy training just judo. And we don't teach karate, we don't teach jiu-jitsu. They can take that at another place, in another business that's run beside mine. But my judo academy as a standalone has over 300 actively participating members.
That's impressive. Very cool. Nice. So go back a little and talk about your black belt test. What was that like? And was that testing, was it just in front of your dad? Was there other, higher ranks involved, or just a little bit about your black belt test?
So my dad was a little bit old school. Of course, there's requirements for black belt, whether it's time and grade, prove yourself in competition, know a certain amount of techniques, have, certain knowledge in the sport. My dad always believed that a black belt at our school should be somebody that could go out there against any adult and defend themselves well and handle themselves in an appropriate way. In addition, in competition, when that black belt steps on the mat, he's no longer is losing to any brown belts or anybody below them. They're consistently beating all the ranks below them and can hold their own against other black belts. And that was his way of deciding who was ready for black belt. I didn't have a test where I stood in front of people and demonstrated my techniques. I proved myself in competition. Okay. So I earned my black belt when I won the high school national championships in the sport of judo. So I had won the national championships many, many times up until I was 17 years old. At 17, I was still a brown belt, but most of the kids that I was competing against at the high school national championships, they were already awarded their black belt. And so when I won the high school national championships and beat all of the other black belts in my division, my dad said, "Okay, it's time. You can be promoted to black belt." And that's how I got my black belt, was by beating other black belts.
Okay.
When I was a brown belt.
Nice.
And proving it through competition.
Okay. And then at what age did the Olympics start becoming a reality? When did you start thinking maybe this is something? Was that something you thought about from a young age because of your dad, or not until you got a little older and started doing well in competition? When did the Olympics kind of get on your radar?
So I think the seed was planted when I was young. The seed was planted when I was maybe when my dad was an Olympic alternate in 76. I remember watching the Olympics on television with him and kind of seeing a little glimmer in his eye about how excited he was to see Team USA compete in the Olympic Games, and how it was he led me to believe that it was like one of the most honorable things you could do for your country, outside of, go to war and join the military and fight for your freedom. Mm-hmm. The second best thing would be represent your country, in sport at the Olympics. So that seed was planted young, but I don't think I really got an understanding that I was capable of doing that until I was around 16 years old. I competed in my first U.S. senior national championships. And at that event, I competed against a guy by the name of Kevin Asano, who was the number one athlete in the United States at the time. He was a bronze medalist at the World Championships. He ended up going on and taking a silver medal in the Olympic Games in 1988. And I competed against him in the 1987 Senior National Championships. I was 16, and he was, I think, probably 25.
Okay.
And I ended up going the full distance with him. I lost the match by a referee's decision. So there was, after the end of the contest, he had no score. I had no score. I gave him the best match I could. It was a close contest. I lost by decision. And I think at that point in time is when I realized, man, that was pretty close. And I'm only 16, and he went on to win an Olympic medal the year later, and it was a silver medal. So that's when I said, man, I'm good enough to compete with these guys. And it was then that I started going internationally around the world to train and get better and, learn from other people and train against, higher level athletes all the time. And I just took my training to a whole nother level when I was in high school and then college, and ended up making my first Olympic team in 1992 when I was 21 years old.
Nice. And I know it's different with every sport. So when you actually went to the Olympic qualifiers and made it, how far was that before the actual Olympics? So after you got ready for it, you won. And then how much training did you get to do before you left for the Olympics?
So in the sport of judo back then, you just had to be the best athlete of the United States. You had to win the Olympic trials. Back in 92, they had the Olympic trials in January of 1992.
Okay.
So I won the trials in January, and then the Olympics were in July. So I had a good, 6-7 months to prepare for the Olympics, which, constituted of getting on a plane and going to Paris and competing in the Grand Slam in Paris, then doing a camp there, then staying for the Austrian Open and doing a camp in Austria the next weekend, and then following that up with the German competition and the World Masters in Germany, followed by another training camp, then go to Hungary and compete in Hungary the following weekend. I spent 6 weeks in Europe straight from February till mid-March, come back, compete in the national championships here in April, go to Japan and prepare in Japan for 3 or 4 weeks, through May, compete in Italy with a couple of tournaments in Italy in between camps. So we had a really aggressive schedule getting ready for the Barcelona Olympics. We competed everywhere and really put a hard schedule together to get ready.
Wow. And what was that very first Olympic experience like? What are some things that you remember about that?
It was disappointing for one moment, right? And that's to win an Olympic gold medal. And when you dedicate, from the age of 6 until you're 21, that's 15 years of your life missing birthday parties, vacations, friends and family activities. You're spending a lot of time alone in a foreign land, getting yourself out of bed, going to practice, coming back, working out in the afternoon, weightlifting or running, getting a nap, going back to another judo practice and doing it over and over and over again for a lot of years to get ready for that moment. And when you go to the Olympics and you don't perform to the best of your ability, well, I performed to the best I could, I think. I just didn't win. Mm-hmm. And so when you don't succeed and you don't reach your goal, it's very disheartening. And to me, it was disappointing and somewhat depressing, especially when the gold medalist was a guy from Brazil. And it's somebody that I had never lost to in my life. The silver medalist was a guy from Hungary, who I think I had beat him twice. He beat me twice in my career. And then The bronze medalist was a guy from Cuba, and I never lost to him in my career ever either. So when you look at the medalists, and you're not one of them, but you're very capable of being one of them, it was disappointing. And at that Olympics, I won 2 matches, and then I lost my 3rd match to a guy from Japan. Really tough, hard-fought match, but I came out on the short end of it and lost. So tough matchup.
Was that not doing the best that you knew you could? Was that kind of what drove you to go back and go for it again 4 years later?
Absolutely. When you don't reach your goal and you don't succeed, right? If you don't try again, you're definitely not going to reach it. That's 100%, right? 100% that you won't get there. So for me, it was, hey, didn't do it this time, but hey, let's rededicate ourselves and let's try to get back and make the most of the next opportunity.
As an actual athlete, you've gone 4 times. Now, what's the record for judo? How many times, what's the most someone has gone? I should have looked that up, but I don't know. I'm not sure as far as like worldwide what the record is. Mm-hmm. I think that in the United States, there's been a few 4-time Olympians. Okay.
I know that, I know that Jason Morris was a 4-time Olympian. I know that Brian Olsen was a 4-time Olympian. I'm not sure how many others made 4 games. I don't think there was very many more though.
Okay. Now, obviously, you ended up doing better each time. Because I think it was at 96. Was it 5th place? If I remember correctly?
So 96 was Atlanta, and I actually won a bronze medal.
Okay, sorry.
I stepped on the podium. I won a bronze. So that was amazing. It was in the States. All my friends, family, everybody was there. It was in an American crowd, so the whole crowd was behind me, and it was really electric to do that in the United States. The next Olympics, I was actually the world champion in '99 going into the 2000 Olympic Games. So I was the sort of odds-on favorite to win an Olympic gold. And in Sydney, I had a disappointing Olympics.
Okay.
I ended up finishing 5th. I lost my very first match of the games. I had the number 5 guy in the world from Korea who ended up beating me by a penalty. It was like a small minor infraction for gripping the gi the wrong way, and that's how he won. Then I came back and won 5 straight, and then I lost in the bronze medal contest, which was disappointing because, but still 5th in the world or, losing for the bronze at the Olympics is nothing. It's still a good performance for most, but I was devastated. I was devastated by it because I really thought I was going to win the gold that day, which made me come back, to the last games, which was in Athens, Greece. And I was 33 years old, going on 34, and kind of definitely at the tail end of my career, but salvaged it one last time and finished on the podium. For my second time, which for me, it was amazing to finish on a positive note.
Any part of you consider trying to come back 4 more years, or did you know you were done after that?
No. That was it. I had 3 kids at home already. I had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old at home, and it was time to, move on with life and figure stuff. Actually, at that time, they were actually older. They were 7, 5, and 4 or something like that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to try like the Michael Phelps thing, huh? Just kind of keep going. But okay, nice. So then when did, after that, did they approach you about coaching the team, or was that something you wanted to do?
Yeah. So after 2004, Ed Liddy, who was the high performance director at USA Judo, said, "Hey, we've got a concept. We've got an idea. We'd like you to come on board with coaching. And, not as the head national coach, but we have a program called the U23 program, which is, anybody under the age of 23, we want you to identify the talent. We want you to work with and develop that talent and take them around the world and teach them and show them what it takes to win." And I said, done. I'd love to do it. What's the budget? Oh, we've got $36,000 a year for all of the athletes and you.
Wow.
To go around the world and train and coach. I was thinking to myself, okay, we got to be really creative here, right? So I actually identified 20 athletes, and I wrote all of them a personal letter that I wrote saying, you've been identified by USA Judo and as somebody that has Olympic potential. We'd love to invite you to be part of this team. I got a sponsor to donate, a sweatsuit for all the kids to help them out with some judo gi so that they, get something for joining the team. And I said, the commitment is you guys are going to go to all the tournaments that I've put on this list. And we're going to be able to give you a stipend of, I think at the time it was like $500 each for every international trip we go on. So it was like a budget of like $1,500 per person is all I had to give because I had 20 athletes, right? So we did some creative math, and these kids felt excited and honored to have been selected and chosen as, Olympic potential. And they all bought in, and they all did all the training that was necessary and showed up at the camps and gave it their all. And lo and behold, a lot of them ended up going on to becoming our Olympic superstars.
Nice.
And it was work done by a lot of people. I'm not the only one that gets the credit, but certainly leading them, guiding them, directing them, helping them, turn them into some amazing athletes. And that's where Travis was part of that program. Travis Stevens, Ronda Rousey was part of that program. Kayla Harrison was part of the program. Marty Malloy, who won an Olympic medal. Nick Del Popolo, who, went to a couple of Olympic games and finished 7th, was part of the program. And we had a lot of other talented kids that, although they didn't make an Olympic team or win an Olympic medal, they progressed, and we really put United States judo on the map as like a strong powerhouse in the sport.
Nice.
So, and a lot of those kids are still doing judo full time today, which I'm very proud of. You have, Harry St. Ledger, Gary St. Ledger. They're both part of like mixed martial arts programs or running professional judos today, judo dojos today. And they were part of that program as well. And a lot of these people stayed in judo and are now giving back to the sport, which is nice.
Is that program still going?
It is not. No, that was something I did for like 4 years from 2005 to 2009.
Okay.
And then in 2009, I took over the head coaching job at USA Judo, and I led the Olympic team to the 2012 Olympics and then the 2016 Olympics as well.
Okay. So what's more nerve-wracking, competing yourself in the Olympics or doing it as a coach and watching your students compete?
Watching your students compete is much more nerve-wracking. When you're an athlete, you can control the destiny. You directly can affect what happens at the end of the match, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, once the competition begins, you're no longer nervous. You no longer have anxiety. You get it all out while you're competing. And once you're in the flow of competing, you just compete. You're not nervous anymore. As a coach, you're constantly nervous. Every match you're nervous. You don't know what the outcome is going to be throughout the entire contest. You have nervous energy because you're hoping that they execute. You're hoping they do what you've taught them, or they're making adjustments out there that you're telling them. But you still don't directly control that outcome. That's why it's so much more nerve-wracking.
So how cool was it then being there as a coach and watching the first person ever from the U.S. win gold with Kayla? That was a surreal moment. That was almost as if it didn't feel like it was really happening. Do you know what I mean? Like you just couldn't believe it to be true. It was something that had been talked about in the United States ever since I was a kid. Of when are we going to have our first Olympic gold medalist? We've never had anybody become Olympic champion. Like, that's something that was always put out there as someone has to do it. Someone's going to do it. And then when you're actually a part of that reality, it doesn't seem like it's true. You know what I mean? It was a magical, terrific, amazing time. That's awesome. Yeah. I remember I never got to watch. I think I only watched a judo in the Olympics maybe 3 or 4 times in my life. And that was one of the times I watched. I just happened to flip on and I'm like, oh my God, she's going to win. I was jumping up and down and cheering and stuff. And I was like, that's so cool. So yeah, I mean, even just as a fan from back home watching, it was so cool. I can't imagine being there and seeing it in person. So that's really, really cool. Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So talk a little bit about Fuji mats and Fuji sports and kind of how that thing started.
Yeah, crazy. Interesting. So after my athletic career, I went and worked for a company, Monster.com, and I was heading up their Olympic activation division. I was the manager of their Olympic sponsorship because Monster sponsored the U.S. Olympic team in 2002 and 2004.
Okay. And
that was my job. And as a result of that job, I learned a lot about marketing, sponsorships, online activation, sweepstakes, promotions. It helped me immensely in my career that I do today. But I use that knowledge to then go on and work for a company in the mat business. They wanted a face to their brand. And so I was hired by a company to be originally a sales rep and a spokesperson. I did that job for about 8 or 9 years, and I helped lead and guide and direct that company into a massive international brand. While I was there, I had continued to ask the owner of the company to have future ownership, in a meaningful way, and it was something that really wasn't on the table. And so all along, there was a brand called Fuji owned by Leah Hatashta. And I was always a spokesperson for that brand as well, because it's a judo gi company. And I represented their judo gis while I was an athlete. I did some business consulting with them on the side, and I helped grow that company quite a bit while I was doing the mat business. And when I expressed my dissatisfaction in the current company I was working for, Leah at Fuji said, well, why don't you come over and work full time for me and work together with me and grow my brand? You've done an amazing job so far. I have full confidence in your ability to grow it even further. So that was back in 2014. And at that point, I became a full-time employee of Hadashida Enterprises, which owns Fuji Sports. Okay. And they were just getting into BJJ at the time, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and that sort of thing. So I helped do the strategy, the marketing, the product development for Fuji. And we took it from where it was then to where it is today. And I would say today it's probably the number one selling brand in Jiu-Jitsu in the world. At least if it's not in terms of like the brand itself, I'm certainly positive in the number of gis that we provide and sell worldwide to other companies. And it was about a year after that where my partners at the previous mat company came to me and said, hey, we really would love to start a mat division with you as well. Could we do that under the Fuji brand name? And I said, sure, let's give it a try. So I took the two top guys from the other company. They created an alliance with me. We started the Fuji mat brand in 2015. And today I would say that, in terms of tatami mat sales and expertise and knowledge in the mat space, Fuji Mats is the number one martial arts mat brand in the United States today. Both companies, I am owners of both companies. They're sort of my babies, that I've looked after for the last, 9-10 years. And I'm super proud of what we've done and what we've become. We hire, most of the people that we hire are all martial artists. They all live and breathe in the sports space. They're judo players, athletes, Division I. They're all like individuals dedicated to a cause that love and live the passion of grappling and martial arts. And they work extremely hard. They're very intelligent, and everybody in the company is just good people. Like we surround ourselves with really good people, who have been taught responsibility, accountability. We have character, and everybody treats the customer like they should be treated. You're not farmed off to an overseas sales rep or customer service rep. It's all done by Americans here in America, and so it's just, I think it's a terrific brand that we've created, and I'm super proud of it.
That's awesome. And I will definitely put links out there for all that stuff too, because that's really cool. And I support anything to do with martial arts. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. So talk a little bit about the movie, Fury on the Mat. How did that come about?
Oh, it's funny. When I was working at Monster, one of the guys there was the video editing guy. He put all the caricatures together for Monster.com and did a lot of like the media graphics and stuff. And he approached me and he said, hey, we should make a movie of your life. Do you have any videotapes and stuff? And I laughed and I said, I have videotapes of myself since I was 6 years old, all the way to all the Olympics, like all homeschool old video stuff. And so he said, would you mind bringing them in? I'll put them all on like discs, and we'll go through it and let's put a story together. And he helped me script the whole thing. He helped me, he interviewed me. He put all the sound bites together. He did the video overlay of all of the stuff from competition. And probably the biggest thing that most people don't know is that in order to show any Olympic footage in anything, you have to have the rights to that footage.
Right.
And even though it's you competing, you don't own the rights. The Olympic Committee owns the rights. So it cost me over $20,000 that I had to pay the Olympic Committee for the rights to put like 7 minutes of footage of myself competing in my own film that I created.
Wow.
And so the Fury on the Mat it's really my life story. It's my life's journey from 6 years old till I stepped on the final Olympic podium in Athens, Greece.
Can people see that online? Is that streaming somewhere?
Yeah. It's still, I think it's on YouTube. I think people have uploaded it to YouTube. Yeah.
Perfect. If I find that, I'll put a link for that one too. Cause I tried finding it. Like I looked on all the different streaming things. I never thought of looking on YouTube, I guess, but I will try to find it and put a link out there for that too. So what is some advice you would give someone who wants to get involved in martial arts for the first time in their life? They know nothing about it, and they're just wondering a couple tips. What should I look for in a school? What should I look for in an instructor?
Well, first of all, joining martial arts could possibly be the best thing that you've ever done for yourself or your child. I think if you find the right fit at the right school, it truly can change your life, forever. The skills and the lessons that you're going to learn about, being humble, being respectful, caring about other people, caring about yourself, challenging yourself every day, learning discipline, learning how to overcome obstacles, set goals, have setbacks, examine why you're not winning or why things aren't working, and then how to overcome those. Like, those life lessons are truly invaluable, and they've made me the person that I am today and the business person that I am today. Mm-hmm. But it is important that you find the right fit. I wouldn't go to some place that is a belt factory where their goal is to take as much money from you as possible and put you on a fast track to becoming a black belt. I really think you need to find the right martial art that fits your lifestyle, and certainly judo's not for everybody, but jiu-jitsu in the right academy can be. For a young kid, I think judo's an excellent choice. Somewhere between the age of 5 years old and 25 years old is a good age to start judo. After that, it's a little bit tough of a sport to do. And, there are some taekwondo, karate schools out there with really good instructors. Just find a place and be sure to ask the parents of the students that are in that place, what this place is like and what do you like about it and what don't you like about it, mm-hmm. Because I think it's important that you find the right fit. And certainly the instructor, somebody who's there, who lives and breathes martial arts, who's always present at the school, somebody who cares about people. If you find that a dojo that has that, then you found a gem.
Nice. I like that. All right. So you've had a lot of your students have had success switching from judo and moving into the MMA octagon, as I say, I guess. People like Kayla and Rhonda and Rick, they've had, success in MMA. So I'm just curious, are you a fan of MMA? And is that something you ever thought about in your life, possibly stepping into the cage?
So for me, it was something that I never considered because, the UFC really didn't come around until I was almost 30 years old, right? I think the first UFC was 1996 or somewhere around there.
Yep. I
was in the prime of my judo career, focused on judo at the time. And back then, the UFC had no weight classes. So as a 150-pound guy, I knew I wasn't getting in a ring and winning any titles in MMA. So it wasn't something that I ever considered. When the UFC started having weight classes, then that's something that I would have considered. But I was at the tail end of a career, 34 years old, to become a professional MMA athlete and try to do it starting at the age of 34 is probably not a good career choice.
Right.
After you've, sacrificed a good part of your life making next to no money in the sport of judo, to try to do that in mixed martial arts didn't really make sense either. And back then there wasn't that much money in MMA, right. Not like it is today,
yeah.
So it wasn't a good career move. And plus I had kids at home, and the only way to really be successful is you have to be a full-time athlete. And
right.
That really wasn't in the cards. So, but I do like MMA. I'm surrounded by it. My business is surrounded by it. I think it gets a bad reputation, mm-hmm. For being I'll call it a knucklehead sport, or, people that have no class or no respect. It's quite the opposite. A lot of the people that are at the highest level of mixed martial arts are very intelligent, smart, humble people. They really are. Anything that they do on camera, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they're trying to be showmen. They're trying to get eyeballs on their pay-per-views. They want people to watch the fights. It's an act. It's they're playing a game, and it's to get as many people as they can attracted to the fight that they're going to have next, and to create a persona for themselves. But in person, I'm really good friends with a lot of them now, because I helped build a lot of their gyms. I see a lot of them I go to a lot of the fights, so I see a lot of them where I know their agents. And it is a really good community of people that are highly skilled in what they do. And I have a lot of respect for the dream that they're chasing, because I once chased that same dream.
Very cool. So in all your years then in judo, is there one philosophy you've learned that stands out, that rises to the top of your list? You keep coming back to it?
Yeah. Believe in yourself and never quit.
Nice.
I tell my athletes and I tell my children that if you don't believe in yourself, nobody will. And if you don't believe in yourself, you will never succeed. You will never win, because you have to believe that nobody's better than you, that you can do anything. And if you don't believe that, then it won't happen. So you've got to convince yourself and believe that it is going to happen for you. It's just a matter of time. And along that way, as long as there's a never quit attitude and you keep clawing and chasing and grinding and fighting and learning and adjusting and adapting, and the will to succeed is there and the belief in yourself is there, you can get there.
Nice. All right. I got a few fun questions to wrap it up here. Who are 3 or 4 names, maybe 5 names? I've had guests do as many as 8, but I usually say 3 or 4 names that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts.
Oh, we're talking about all martial arts here?
Yeah, it's your personal. I mean, I've had people put only the style they're in. I've had people will do like a Bruce Lee or a Chuck Norris. It's all kind of depends on you. It's your decision.
Wow. It's tough. I mean, obviously, I think Muhammad Ali has to be there.
Nice.
As the greatest showman and boxer of all time, or at least certainly the most charismatic boxer of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Muhammad Ali in boxing. In mixed martial arts, you have Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's undefeated and went down as the only undefeated MMA fighter in UFC history. So I would put Khabib there as one of the greatest champs in MMA. In judo, you have to put, from the United States, if you were picking an American, you'd have to put Kayla Harrison. Definitely. As a 2-time Olympic champion. So she'd be my pick if there was an American, and especially if a female had to go up there, I'd say it would be her. In wrestling, it would have to be Jordan Burroughs for the number of Olympic titles and world titles that Jordan has won as a wrestler.
Okay.
So that would be my wrestling pick. Jiu-jitsu is a tough one. Because there's a whole new generation of jiu-jitsu players out there. Obviously, if it's a no-gi, then I think you'd have to pick Gordon Ryan as the no-gi guy. Probably the gi guy, I'd have to go with Roger Gracie.
Nice.
As a gi practitioner. And we're talking running out of, I'd say, certainly Bruce Lee in Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it on the map and making it famous, he would certainly have to be there. So
nice. That's an impressive Mount Rushmore. I like that. I want to see.
I don't know how many names I covered, but
I think 6 or 7. That's pretty good.
There you go. There you go.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
Oh, I don't have a favorite martial arts book.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay, that's fine. This one you might not have an answer for either. I mean, you kind of grew up in like the 80s and 90s, so maybe, but do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Were you ever a gamer? I never really played video games. No, because I traveled so often and went overseas so much. The old school one. The first one that ever came out was that football game that was just a little dash that went across the screen. I'm really showing my age, but it was a little handheld thing that you could only play. It was like I remember that. It wasn't even animated, but was one of my favorite. That and Tetris when I was a kid. Okay. But no, I never played martial arts. Okay. That's cool.
I did do UFC. Hang on. I did my kids got the UFC 1 or when it first came out. They used to kick my ass in that. Okay, nice. How about a favorite martial arts TV show? I laughed when I saw the Cobra Kai when on the Netflix when it came out during. I watched that whole series. I thought that was funny just because it had so many parallels back to the original Karate Kid.
I love it. I watch it with my daughter every time it comes out.
That's great.
So. Nice. That's good. Yeah. How about a favorite martial arts movie?
Boy, that's a tough one. Martial arts movie. The ones I had way back when were black and white. I don't even remember any of the names of them. I have to go with one of the Karate Kids because that was my generation growing up. Yep.
Hey, that's my pick too. The first Karate Kid is my pick.
Yeah, with Mr. Miyagi for sure.
Okay, cool. And final question. Now, this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Just a favorite movie fight scene. Is there any just fight scene that stands out? You're like, oh, it's so cool. I like the way they did that. It's one that jumps to the top.
I think that I'm not good with names of movies or names of music and stuff like that. It's something that I'm not my forte, but there was a scene that I really liked and I forget what the movie was, but it was with Keanu Reeves and it was, maybe it was The Matrix or something like that, but it was a really good fight scene that had some legitimate judo going on in it, and arm bars and triangle chokes and things like that. But I don't remember the movie that it was specifically, but I do remember seeing the scenes and I was impressed with the choreography and the legitimacy of the actual movements.
I was actually going to ask you that. Has there been any movies you can think of that really portrayed judo realistically?
You know what's funny is years ago, I think in the 70s and 80s is when judo was at its height, and all the other martial arts really, MMA didn't exist, and karate wasn't what it was. It became that after the Karate Kid, I believe.
Yep.
But prior to that, judo was always referenced. Teddy Roosevelt did judo, and there was judo scenes in movies, and there was references to Gene LaBelle was in Hollywood, and there was always like judo scenes and references to Tomoe Nagi's or a judo chop or whatever it was. There always was a reference to judo, but that's all disappeared today.
Yeah.
Even the Flintstone stuff.
Well, hopefully maybe it'll make a comeback. I mean, it'd be cool to start seeing that again. So I'd love to see. I mean, surprised that's one thing they haven't done, like is a biography, like an actual Hollywood movie of Jiro Kano, like the guy who founded judo. I mean, that'd be kind of cool to see his life story on screen.
It'd be awesome.
Maybe we'll see that in our lifetime. Dare to dream. So. Well, is there anything that I maybe haven't asked you that you want to make sure to get out there? And like I said, I'll put links for all your stuff, for your school website, for Fuji mats. I'll put all that out there. But anything that maybe I didn't ask you that you want to make sure we talk about quick? No,
I just loved how personal it was. And I think you covered a good gamut of my career, my life, my family, and my athletes. So
well, I truly appreciate it. It's been so much fun chatting and hearing your story, and I can't wait to get the episode out towards the end of March. I'm about a month ahead right now, so in recording.
All right, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, but I will get a hold of you when it's coming out and stuff. But I truly appreciate your time, and it's been a blast chatting.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. I wish you guys the best of luck.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.